You won't believe what happened when my ex-husband invited me to his wedding just to humiliate me. He thought I'd show up broken and poor. Instead, I arrived in a limousine that cost more than his house. But that's not even the craziest part. What happened next at that wedding? It absolutely destroyed him. And I didn't even have to say a word. His own fiancé's father did all the work for me. Stick around, because when I tell you how karma hit this man, you're going to lose your mind. This is MY's story, and trust me, you've never heard anything like it. But before we get into this absolute chaos, smash that like button and subscribe to this channel, because stories like this, they don't come around every day. Hit that notification bell so you never miss out on tales of revenge, redemption, and people getting exactly what they deserve. Now, let's get into it. My name is Sarah Mitchell. Well, it's Sarah Chin now, but we'll get to that later. And 5 years ago, I was Sarah Harper, married to Marcus Harper, the man who I thought was the love of my life. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. But let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand just how much I gave up for this man. I met Marcus when we were both 23, fresh out of college. I had a degree in business administration, and he had a degree in computer science and a head full of dreams. Big dreams. World-changing dreams. He wanted to create a tech startup that would revolutionize project management software. And you know what? I believed in him. I believed in him so much that when he said he needed to focus full-time on building his company, I said, do it. I'll support us. And I meant it. So while Marcus sat in our tiny one-bedroom apartment coding away, eating ramen noodles and dreaming of millions, I worked. And I don't mean one job. I mean 3 jobs. I was a receptionist at a dental office from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Then I'd rush home, change, and work as a waitress at a mid-scale restaurant from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. And on weekends, I did freelance bookkeeping for small businesses. I was exhausted. Constantly. There were days when I fell asleep on the bus coming home from my waitressing shift. Days when I was so tired I could barely see straight. But every time I looked at Marcus, hunched over his laptop, working on his dream, I told myself it would be worth it. Just a few more months, Sarah, he'd say, kissing my forehead. Once I get this prototype finished and secure some investors, everything will change. We'll have the life we always dreamed of. I promise. And I believed him. God, I was so stupid to believe him. This went on for 3 years. 3 years. Do you know what it's like to work yourself to the bone for 3 years while your partner chases a dream? Let me paint you a picture. Our anniversary. I worked a double shift and brought home takeout Chinese food. We ate it on our worn-out couch while Marcus showed me his latest coding breakthrough. My birthday. I worked. His birthday. I scraped together money to buy him a new laptop because his old one was dying. Christmas. I picked up extra shifts so we could afford to visit his parents. And through it all, Marcus kept promising me that success was just around the corner. Then, in year 4 of our marriage, something finally happened. Marcus landed a meeting with a major venture capital firm. He pitched his project management software, and they loved it. They gave him $2 million in seed funding. I remember the day he came home with that news. I was so exhausted from pulling a double shift that I'd fallen asleep in my work clothes on the couch. Marcus burst through the door, screaming, "We did it. We did it, Sarah. They funded us." I jumped up, and we danced around our tiny living room like maniacs. We laughed. We cried. We ordered expensive pizza, the kind with truffle oil that we'd always walked past and dreamed about. That night, I actually believed that all my sacrifice had been worth it. "I couldn't have done this without you," Marcus said, holding my face in his hands. "You're the reason I made it this far. I love you so much." I should have recorded those words. I should have made him sign them in blood. Because within 6 months, they meant absolutely nothing. The money changed Marcus. Not gradually, fast. Like flipping a switch. Suddenly, he needed a new wardrobe for investor meetings. Designer suits. Expensive watches. Shoes that cost more than I made in a week at the dental office. Image matters in business, Sarah, he'd say when I gently questioned the spending. Then he needed a new car. The used Honda Civic I'd been driving for 8 years while he used public transportation. Not good enough anymore. He bought himself a BMW. A brand new BMW. When I asked if maybe we could upgrade my car too, just to something reliable that didn't sound like it was dying every time I started it, he said, "Soon, babe. Let's get the company stable first." But there was money for his gym membership at an elite fitness club. Money for his membership at an exclusive business networking club. Money for him to attend tech conferences in Vegas, Miami, San Francisco. I was still working my 3 jobs because Marcus said we needed to be financially cautious until the company was profitable. Meanwhile, he was dropping $500 on a single dinner with potential clients. I started to notice he was coming home later and later. Networking events, he'd say. "You wouldn't understand, Sarah. This is how business works at this level." And like an idiot, I trusted him. Then came the company parties. Marcus's startup, TechFlow Solutions, started having these elaborate events. Holiday parties at fancy hotels. Summer rooftop gatherings. Launch celebrations. And every single time, Marcus would say, "Sarah, I don't think you should come to this one. It's mostly industry people, and you'd be bored. Plus, don't you have to work?" I always had to work. But looking back, I realize he was ashamed of me. The girl who'd worked 3 jobs to support his dream. The girl who wore second-hand clothes because we couldn't afford anything else. The girl whose hands were rough from washing dishes and whose eyes had permanent dark circles from exhaustion. I wasn't good enough for Marcus's new world. The final blow came on a Tuesday evening. I'll never forget it. October 15th. I'd just gotten home from the dental office and was about to change for my waitressing shift when Marcus came home early. He looked nervous. Guilty. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said. Those 4 words. They're never good, are they? "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Marcus continued, not quite meeting my eyes. "And I think we've grown apart." I actually laughed. I laughed. Because it was so absurd. Grown apart? "Marcus, I've been working 3 jobs to support your dream. How have we grown apart?" "See, that's exactly what I mean," he said, and I swear to God, he had the audacity to look annoyed. "You're always working. We never spend time together anymore. We don't have anything in common. I'm working because you asked me to support your startup." I shouted. "I never asked you to work 3 jobs, Sarah. That was your choice. And honestly, now that the company is doing well, I need a partner who understands the tech world. Someone who can network with me, who fits into my new life. Someone who's more sophisticated. More sophisticated." Let that sink in for a moment. The man I'd sacrificed everything for just called me unsophisticated. "Is there someone else?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. He had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. "Her name is Victoria. She's from a prominent family in the tech investment world. Her father is Harrison Blackwell, he owns Blackwell Ventures. Sarah, you have to understand, this relationship could be really important for the company." "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" "Get out. Get out of this apartment that I've been paying for. Get out now." The divorce was brutal. Marcus tried to claim that since his name was on the company, I had no right to any of it. Never mind that I'd literally funded his life for 3 years while he built it. Never mind that I'd worked myself to exhaustion. According to his expensive lawyer, my contribution was irrelevant because I wasn't officially listed as a co-founder. But you know what? I might have been exhausted, but I wasn't stupid. And I'd been doing bookkeeping for years. I had receipts. I had bank statements showing every deposit I'd made into our joint account. I had credit card statements showing that I'd paid for his laptop, his software subscriptions, even his domain name registration when we were starting out. My lawyer, a fierce woman named Patricia who took my case partially pro bono because she was so disgusted by Marcus's behavior, argued that I'd been an investor in the company. That my financial support during the founding years entitled me to compensation. It took 8 months of legal warfare, but eventually Marcus settled. He gave me $800,000 and our apartment. He also had to pay my legal fees. $800,000. It sounds like a lot, doesn't it? But let me break down what I'd actually contributed: 3 years of working 70-hour weeks. Let's say I made about $60,000 a year total from all my jobs. That's $180,000 in earnings. But the value of supporting him full-time while he built a company. The opportunity cost of not advancing my own career. The emotional labor. The sacrifice. That company was worth $20 million at the time of our divorce. I should have gotten more. Way more. But I was exhausted from fighting, and Patricia advised me that going to trial was risky. So I took the settlement. Marcus married Victoria 3 months after our divorce was finalized. 3 months. They'd obviously been together the whole time he was divorcing me. I saw their engagement announcement in a tech industry magazine. Victoria Blackwell and Marcus Harper smiling in front of what looked like a yacht. The caption said they'd gotten engaged in the Maldives. I cried for a week straight. But then something shifted inside me. I was sitting in my apartment, the apartment I'd fought for, the apartment that held so many memories of struggle and sacrifice, and I realized something. I was only 29 years old. I had $800,000. And I had absolutely nothing tying me down anymore. Marcus thought he'd won. He thought he'd upgraded. Oh, sweetheart. I was about to show him what a real upgrade looked like. The first thing I did was quit 2 of my 3 jobs. I kept the freelance bookkeeping because I actually enjoyed it and could do it on my own schedule. Then I applied to business school. Not just any business school, I applied to Wharton, Stanford, and Columbia. The top MBA programs in the country. I got into all 3. I chose Stanford because I wanted to be in Silicon Valley. I wanted to be exactly where Marcus thought I didn't belong. I wanted to learn the language he claimed I didn't speak. I wanted to understand the world he said I wasn't sophisticated enough for. I used part of my settlement money for tuition and living expenses, and I invested the rest in a diversified portfolio that my new financial advisor helped me set up. Business school was hard. But hard in a completely different way than working 3 jobs had been. This was intellectually challenging. Stimulating. Exciting. I was learning about venture capital, startup financing, market analysis, strategic positioning. I was studying case studies of successful companies and understanding what made them work. And you know what I discovered? I was good at this. Really good. All those years of managing our household finances on a shoestring budget. That had taught me discipline and resourcefulness. All those years of doing bookkeeping. That had given me an eye for numbers and financial patterns. All those years of working 3 jobs. That had taught me time management and work ethic that most of my classmates couldn't match. I thrived. In my 2nd year, I did an internship at a venture capital firm called Horizon Equity. They loved me. They loved my analysis skills, my work ethic, my ability to spot potential in early-stage companies. When I graduated with my MBA, they offered me a full-time position as an associate. I accepted. For the next 2 years, I worked my way up at Horizon Equity. I learned everything I could about evaluating startups, understanding market trends, and identifying promising founders. And I discovered something fascinating: the best founders weren't always the flashiest ones. They weren't the Marcus Harpers of the world with their designer suits and BMWs. The best founders were the ones who were scrappy, resourceful, passionate, and willing to do whatever it took to make their vision reality. The founders who reminded me of, well, me. When I was 33, I made a bold move. I left Horizon Equity and started my own venture capital firm, Phoenix Capital Partners. The name was intentional. I was rising from the ashes of my old life. I started small. I used my savings and convinced a few high-net-worth individuals I'd connected with to become limited partners. My first fund was $10 million. Not huge in the VC world, but enough to make some strategic investments. And I had a strategy. While other VCs were fighting over the hot startups with massive valuations, I focused on companies that were being overlooked. Companies founded by women. Companies founded by immigrants. Companies started by people who didn't have fancy pedigrees or Ivy League connections. Companies that reminded me of what Marcus's startup should have been, built on actual innovation and hard work, not just networking and image. My first big win came 8 months in. I invested $500,000 in a company called EduTech Now, founded by a former teacher who'd created an adaptive learning platform for students with dyslexia. Every other VC she'd pitched to had passed on it. They didn't see the market potential. They didn't understand the education space. But I did my research. I talked to teachers, parents, education specialists. I saw the massive untapped market. I believed in the founder's vision and her commitment to making a difference. 18 months later, EduTech Now was acquired by a major education company for $200 million. My $500,000 investment turned into $40 million. Phoenix Capital Partners was suddenly on the map. Over the next year, I made 6 more investments. 4 of them were successful exits. 1 broke even. 1 failed completely. But overall, my portfolio was performing incredibly well. My fund's returns were in the top 5% of all VC funds nationwide. Investors were coming to me now. Limited partners were begging to get into my next fund. I raised a second fund of $100 million. Then a third fund of $250 million. I moved out of my old apartment and bought a beautiful home in Palo Alto. Not ostentatious, I wasn't trying to show off. Just a lovely modern house with clean lines, lots of natural light, and a home office where I could work. I updated my wardrobe, but I kept it classic and professional. I wasn't trying to be flashy like Marcus. I just wanted to look like the successful businesswoman I'd become. And then I met David. Dr. David Chin was an orthopedic surgeon at Stanford Hospital. We met at a fundraiser for a nonprofit that provided medical care to underserved communities. He was volunteering his time doing surgeries in low-income areas, and I was on the board of directors because I'd been making donations to organizations that aligned with my values. We started talking, and I was immediately struck by how kind he was. How humble. This man was literally saving lives every day, and he talked about it like it was no big deal. He asked me about my work, and when I told him about Phoenix Capital Partners, he actually listened. He asked thoughtful questions. He wanted to understand not just what I did, but why I did it. We started dating, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was with someone who saw me. Not what I could do for them. Not how I could serve their ambitions. Just me. David didn't care that I'd once worked 3 jobs and lived in a tiny apartment. He didn't care that I didn't come from money or have family connections. He loved that I was driven and passionate. He loved that I'd built something from nothing. He loved my story because it showed my strength. 6 months into our relationship, we were having dinner at his apartment when he said, "Sarah, I know this might seem fast, but I'm 37 years old, and I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I love you. I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me?" I said yes before he even finished the question. We decided on a small wedding. Neither of us wanted anything elaborate, just close friends and family in a beautiful setting. We set the date for 18 months out because David's surgical schedule was intense, and we wanted time to plan something meaningful. My life was perfect. I had a career I loved, a man who cherished me, financial security, and peace of mind. And then, one afternoon, I got a piece of mail that would change everything. I was going through my mail after a long day of meetings when I saw it. A cream-colored envelope with elegant calligraphy. My name and address written in elaborate script. I opened it, curious. It was a wedding invitation. "Victoria Blackwell and Marcus Harper request the honor of your presence at their wedding celebration." I stared at it in confusion. Marcus and Victoria had been married for almost 5 years. Why was I getting a wedding invitation? Then I noticed the date. It was for a vow renewal ceremony and reception at the Rosewood Estate, one of the most exclusive venues in the Bay Area. A 5-year anniversary celebration. But that still didn't explain why I was invited. Then I saw the note tucked inside the invitation. Handwritten. In Marcus's handwriting. "Sarah, I know this might seem strange, but Victoria and I would love for you to attend our celebration. We've both moved on with our lives and found happiness, and we think it would be a beautiful gesture of closure and forgiveness for you to be there. We're inviting you to show that there are no hard feelings, and that we're all mature adults who can celebrate each other's happiness. Plus, I think it might be good for you to see how well things worked out. Sometimes things happen for a reason, and I believe our divorce was ultimately for the best for both of us. I hope you'll come. Marcus." I read it 3 times, my hands shaking. The audacity. The absolute nerve of this man. He wanted me to come to his anniversary celebration so I could see how well things worked out. He wanted to parade his happiness in front of me. He thought I needed closure. No. This wasn't about closure or maturity or any of that nonsense. This was Marcus wanting to humiliate me one final time. He wanted me to show up looking pathetic so he could feel superior. So he could prove to himself and everyone else that he'd made the right choice leaving me. I should have thrown the invitation in the trash. I should have ignored it completely. But something inside me snapped. All those years of being treated like I wasn't good enough. All the sacrifice that went unappreciated. All the times Marcus made me feel small and unsophisticated and beneath him. I was going to that wedding. Oh, I was definitely going. But not the way Marcus expected. I called my assistant the next morning. "Jessica, I need you to do something for me. Find out everything you can about the Rosewood Estate wedding happening on the 15th of next month. Guest list, vendors, everything." Jessica was efficient. Within 2 days, I had a full dossier. The guest list was extensive. Over 300 people. Tech industry executives, investors, venture capitalists, entrepreneurs. Harrison Blackwell, Victoria's father and one of the most powerful VCs in Silicon Valley, was obviously hosting. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a networking event disguised as a celebration. And that's when it hit me. I recognized over 40 names on that guest list. They were people I'd worked with, invested alongside, or pitched to. These were my people now. My industry. Marcus had no idea who I'd become. I called my stylist. "Diane, I need a dress. Not just any dress. I need something that will make every person in the room turn and look. Elegant, sophisticated, powerful. Can you help me?" Diane delivered. We found a custom Ellie Saab gown in deep emerald green, my color. It was elegant without being flashy, sophisticated without trying too hard. It fit like it was painted on, and when I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman who belonged in any room she walked into. Then I arranged for transportation. I wasn't showing up in my practical Tesla. No, I was going to make an entrance. I called a luxury car service and rented a vintage Rolls-Royce Phantom with a driver. White exterior, cream leather interior, absolutely stunning. David noticed me making all these preparations. "Sarah, what's going on? You seem intense." I showed him the invitation and Marcus's note. David's face went through about 5 different emotions: confusion, anger, disgust, and finally understanding. "He invited you to humiliate you." "Yep." "Are you actually going?" "Absolutely." "Why?" "Sarah, you don't need to prove anything to this guy. You've built an incredible life. You're successful, you're happy, you're engaged to a devastatingly handsome doctor." He grinned at that part. "Why give him the satisfaction?" I smiled. "Because I'm not going to give him satisfaction. I'm going to give him a reality check. He thinks I'm still the struggling girl working 3 jobs. He has no idea who I've become. And when I walk into that venue, when he sees me, when he realizes what he threw away, that's going to be my closure." David kissed my forehead. "You're diabolical. I love it. Can I come as your date?" "Actually, I think I need to do this alone. But thank you for offering to be my knight in shining armor." The day of the wedding arrived. I spent the morning getting ready. Hair in an elegant updo. Makeup flawless but not overdone. The emerald gown fit perfectly. I wore the diamond earrings David had given me for my birthday, simple, classic, expensive. My engagement ring, a stunning 3-carat emerald-cut diamond, sparkled on my left hand. I looked in the mirror one final time. The woman looking back at me was confident, successful, powerful. She was everything Marcus had once made me believe I could never be. The Rolls-Royce arrived exactly on time. My driver, Thomas, opened the door for me. "You look stunning, Ms. Chen." "Ready?" "Absolutely." The drive to Rosewood Estate took 40 minutes. The entire time, my heart was pounding. Not with nervousness, with anticipation. We pulled up to the venue at exactly 6:15 p.m., 15 minutes after the ceremony was scheduled to start. Perfect timing. The ceremony would be over and people would be mingling during cocktail hour. The Rosewood Estate was beautiful. Manicured gardens, string lights everywhere, a massive white tent set up for the reception. Elegant, expensive, exactly what I'd expected from Harrison Blackwell's money. There was a line of luxury cars dropping off guests. BMWs, Mercedes, Teslas, a few Porsches. Nice cars. And then there was my vintage white Rolls-Royce Phantom. Thomas pulled up right to the entrance, and I could see heads turning. People stopped their conversations to look. Thomas came around and opened my door. I stepped out slowly, gracefully, every inch the sophisticated woman Marcus had once said I could never be. The whispers started immediately. "Who is that? I don't recognize her. That dress is Ellie Saab. Is that Sarah Chen? From Phoenix Capital?" "Oh yes." Some people recognized me. People in my industry. People who knew my reputation. I walked up the stairs to the entrance, my head held high. A woman with a clipboard and guest list stood at the door. "Good evening, welcome. May I have your name?" "Sarah Mitchell," I said, using my maiden name since that's what would be on Marcus's list. She scanned her list, found my name, and checked me off. "Wonderful. The cocktail reception is in the garden. Dinner will be served in the main tent at 7:30. I thanked her and walked into what was about to become the best revenge I'd ever experienced. The garden was packed with people in expensive clothes, drinking expensive champagne, making expensive small talk. I grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and took a slow sip, scanning the crowd. And then I saw him. Marcus was standing near the center of the garden, surrounded by a group of men in suits. He was laughing at something, gesturing with his hands. He'd put on a little weight since I'd last seen him, not much but enough to notice. His hair was starting to thin slightly at the crown. He was wearing an expensive tuxedo, and next to him stood Victoria. Victoria was pretty in a conventional way. Blonde, thin, designer gown, lots of jewelry. She looked like exactly what she was, a rich man's daughter who'd never had to work for anything in her life. They hadn't seen me yet. I started to circulate through the garden, and that's when things got interesting. Sarah? Sarah Chen. I turned to see Robert Morrison, a senior partner at Sequoia Capital. We'd co-invested in a healthcare startup 6 months ago. Robert. How wonderful to see you. I didn't know you knew Marcus and Victoria. Oh, Marcus and I go way back, I said with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. We chatted about our recent investments. Then Rebecca Liu from Andreessen Horowitz joined us. Then Michael Torres from Benchmark. Within 10 minutes, I was surrounded by a group of prominent investors, all wanting to talk to me about Phoenix Capital Partners and my recent successes. I was in my element, discussing term sheets and market trends in promising sectors, when I felt someone staring at me. I looked up. Marcus was standing about 20 feet away, champagne glass frozen halfway to his lips, staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Shock. Confusion. Horror. Our eyes met. I smiled, a genuine, confident smile, and gave him a little wave. His face went pale. And that, my friends, is when the real fun began. Robert Morrison, the senior partner from Sequoia Capital standing next to me, noticed my smile and followed my gaze. Do you know Marcus Harper? Oh yes, I said, taking a slow sip of my champagne, never breaking eye contact with Marcus. We have history. Marcus set his champagne glass down on a nearby table. His hand was shaking so badly I could see it from where I stood. Victoria, his wife, was tugging on his arm, saying something I couldn't hear, but he just kept staring at me like he'd seen a ghost. No, not a ghost. Something worse. He was staring at me like he was seeing his past, present, and future collide all at once. Like he was realizing, in real time, that the woman he'd thrown away like garbage had become someone he could never, ever reach. Rebecca Liu from Andreessen Horowitz leaned in and whispered, Sarah, the way that man is looking at you, what exactly is your history? I smiled wider. Let's just say Marcus and I were once very close. Before he decided I wasn't sophisticated enough for his new life. The group around me went silent. Michael Torres's eyes widened. Wait, you're his ex-wife. The ex-wife from the early tech flow days? The very same. And then Marcus started walking toward me. Slowly. Deliberately. Like a man walking to his own execution. Victoria was still trying to stop him, but he shook her off without even looking at her. His eyes were locked on mine, and I could see a dozen emotions flickering across his face. Shock. Anger. Confusion. Fear. And underneath it all, recognition. He was finally seeing me. The real me. Not the exhausted woman working 3 jobs. Not the unsophisticated wife who didn't fit into his world. He was seeing Sarah Chen. Venture capitalist. Self-made success story. The woman who'd built an empire from the ashes of what he'd destroyed. The investors around me shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension crackling in the air like electricity before a storm. Marcus was 10 feet away now. 5 feet. He stopped right in front of me, and up close, I could see the fine lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 5 years ago. The slight puffiness in his face from too much good living. The thinning spot at his crown that his expensive haircut almost, but not quite, covered. He opened his mouth to speak. And that's when Harrison Blackwell, Victoria's father and one of the most powerful venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, called out from across the garden. Sarah Chen. Is that you? I turned and there he was, making his way through the crowd with a huge smile on his face. Marcus's face went from pale to absolutely white. Because Harrison Blackwell was walking past his own daughter's wedding reception to get to me. Mr. Blackwell, I said warmly, extending my hand. What a pleasure. The pleasure is all mine. He shook my hand enthusiastically. I've been trying to get a meeting with you for months. Your fund's performance is extraordinary. I could feel Marcus standing there, frozen, watching his father-in-law fawn over his ex-wife. And I knew, right then, in that moment, that everything I'd planned, everything I'd hoped for by coming here tonight, was about to exceed my wildest expectations. Because I wasn't just here to show Marcus what he'd lost. I was about to show him what he'd never be able to get back. So what happens next? Does Marcus confront me in front of everyone? Does Harrison Blackwell discover the truth about how Marcus built his company on my sacrifice? Does Victoria find out that her husband lied to her about our marriage? And most importantly, what exactly is my plan for revenge? Because trust me, just showing up looking successful. That's not enough. Not even close. I promised you the story of how I destroyed my ex-husband's perfect life without lifting a finger. And that destruction. It's about to begin. Part 2 drops tomorrow at this exact same time. And let me tell you, what happens when Marcus finally finds his voice and tries to explain me away to his father-in-law. When Victoria discovers the truth about our divorce. When I reveal exactly how I funded Marcus's precious startup. You're not going to want to miss it. Drop a comment below and tell me, what do you think I should say to Marcus when he finally speaks? Should I be gracious and take the high road? Or should I let everyone at this party know exactly who built TechFlow Solutions? And here's the real question, do you think Marcus deserves what's coming to him? Or did I go too far by showing up here tonight? Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. Because tomorrow, when part 2 goes live, you're going to see karma work in real time. You're going to see a man's entire world collapse around him. You're going to see what happens when someone who used people finally meets someone they can't use. Hit that like button if you're Team Sarah. Subscribe so you don't miss part 2 tomorrow. And share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to rebuild your life and become everything someone said you'd never be. My name is Sarah Chen. I was once told I wasn't good enough, wasn't sophisticated enough, wasn't worthy enough. Tomorrow, you'll see what happened when I proved them all wrong. See you in part 2. Same time. Same place. And trust me, the real revenge is just getting started. Oh, and one more thing. That invitation Marcus sent me. The one with the handwritten note about closure and moving on. I brought it with me tonight. And I'm about to show it to some very interesting people. Sweet dreams, Marcus. You're going to need them.